You are listening to Resilient Life, the podcast where we explore the power of resiliency. I'm Naketa Ross. It is my hope that listening to this podcast will give you the tools to connect with and increase your resiliency. So join me on this adventure of self-discovery and self-love. Hey Resilientites, I'm glad you're here. I'm Naketa Ross, your go-to person for human resilience. I'm here to guide you toward living your best life. And today we're exploring another powerful tool in our resilience building arsenal. In this episode, we'll explore how listening and speaking with intention can transform our relationships and enrich our lives. We've all been in a conversation where we felt unheard or misunderstood, or we've had moments when our words didn't quite come out right. Maybe you've walked away from a discussion feeling like you didn't express yourself in the way you intended. These experiences can leave us feeling disconnected, frustrated, and even resentful. Let's explore how we can listen and speak with intention to create more meaningful connections. Hint, mindfulness. The challenge we face is that we often communicate on autopilot. And if you aren't sure what autopilot is, I have an episode for you and I will add the link. When communicating on autopilot, we're quick to respond and eager to share our thoughts. But we sometimes fail to truly listen, and I mean really listen. Not listening to respond or listening to fix or listening to share how you have a similar story as the one being told. This lack of mindful communication can create misunderstandings, erode trust, and strain relationships, whether with friends, family, or with your colleagues or your significant other. I'll be completely honest and transparent. When I first heard of the concept of mindfulness, I immediately thought, this is not for me. I was like, this is some ish for people who grew up wealthy and have the privilege of not having real problems. The people who were presenting it to me, they didn't look like me and they didn't have my similar lived experience. So I was not here for it. But once I gave it a chance, I had to admit I was wrong and pleasantly surprised. So I'm here to say that mindfulness practices work for all genders, all ethnicities. It just works. So what does it mean to communicate mindfully? Mindful communication involves being fully present in the moment, both when we're listening and when we're speaking. It's about being intentional with our words and with our attention, ensuring that we're not just hearing, but truly understanding each other. Let's start with mindful listening. Often when someone is speaking to us, our minds are already forming responses, judging what's being said, or getting distracted by other thoughts or our phones, be honest. Mindful listening requires us to set aside these internal dialogues and focus entirely on the speaker. This means listening not just to the words, but also to the emotions and intentions behind the words. Next, let's talk about mindful speaking. This involves choosing our words carefully and considering their impact before we speak them. It's about expressing ourselves clearly and honestly, but with kindness and regard. When we speak mindfully, we aim to build connection and understanding rather than simply asserting our point or getting our point of view across. Listening mindfully or making sure the person has your undivided attention and speaking mindfully combine to ensure that we are communicating in an authentic way that allows each person to feel heard. How often do you really listen to understand rather than just waiting for your turn to speak? Be honest. Mindful communication is about being present or fully aware in the moment, truly hearing what the other person is saying and responding thoughtfully. And sometimes a thoughtful response is just to hold space and be silent. It's not just about exchanging words, it's about connecting on a deeper level. I started practicing mindfulness techniques like taking a deep breath, before responding and making a conscious effort to listen without interrupting. It wasn't easy at first, I'll admit it. There are times I slip back into my old habits, but with consistent effort, I now notice a shift in my interactions. Conversations are more productive, and I feel a stronger sense of connection with those around me. One key moment stands out vividly for me. I was having a difficult conversation with a family member who was coming for me. And instead of reacting defensively, I chose to listen fully. I could see their relief as they realized I was genuinely trying to understand their perspective. It was a powerful reminder that when we approach conversations with intention and empathy, we create a space for healing and growth. There was this other time when a friend of mine shared that her son almost drowned in a pool. And I listened and responded with compassion. And she said, "I knew you would make me cry." Now, I did not make her cry, but I did hold space for her to connect with her trauma of what happened, and it made her feel comfortable to release those emotions. In essence, mindful communication transforms our interactions. It requires patience and practice, but the rewards are immeasurable. By listening and speaking with intention, we foster deeper connections, reduce misunderstandings, and create a more compassionate world. Another point on mindfulness communication is sometimes we have to not be on the defense, even though it's hard if we feel attacked, but try really hard not to be on the defense, to be open to that person's perspective. Resilientites, try this. Imagine you're in a heated discussion with a loved one. Tensions are high, and you feel the urge to defend yourself or make your point heard. But instead of reacting impulsively, you pause, you take a deep breath, and focus on what they are saying. Not just their words, but their tone, their body language, their facial expressions, and their emotions. You respond not with a quick retort, but with a thoughtful question. Something like, "I hear this situation is really upsetting for you. Can you tell me more about what's bothering you the most?" This simple shift of pausing, listening, and responding with intention can diffuse the tension and open the door to a more meaningful conversation. This is the power of mindful communication in action. By being the bigger person, the mature one, you can change the dynamics of all of your relationships by setting the standard and modeling a new behavior for those around you. Resilientites, I challenge you to practice mindful communication this week, whether it's a friend, a family member, a coworker, or your significant other. Start with just one conversation, listen without interrupting or planning your response. When it's your turn to speak, choose your words with care, aiming to connect rather than simply communicate. Notice the difference. It's going to make a difference. Resilientites, let's recap. Mindful communication isn't about being perfect in every conversation. It's about striving to be present and intentional, even in the midst of challenging interactions. When we listen with empathy and speak with clarity and kindness, we foster deeper connections and create a more supportive environment for everyone involved. By practicing mindful communication, we can transform our relationships, making them more resilient, compassionate, and fulfilling. I'd love to hear how this practice impacts your interactions. Share your experiences with me on social media using the hashtag resilientlife. If you found this episode helpful, please take a moment to like, subscribe, follow, or leave a review. Don't forget to share it with someone who could benefit from mindful communication or someone who could use a little boost of resilience. Resilientites, I'll see you in the next episode. I hope this episode gave you some tools to connect with and increase your resiliency. I'm proud of you. Let's keep up the momentum. Follow Resilient Life on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube at Resilient Life Podcast. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.